go ahead and entertain a motion to return from recess.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And to our next presenters, because there is some online viewing, and you were posted as 11:15, we'll have to wait about 2 more minutes and we can begin. Thank you. This is Policy and Governance. We are on item 10 to receive a presentation from Nan McKay and Associates. If you'd like to begin, and welcome.
Opportunity to be here today. We're very excited about the potential of working with Oklahoma County. And I think you'll see that we have a fantastic team that you're going to meet in a minute here to work on this project for you. So our agenda, we're going to start off with just some introductions. Each one of us will come up. Then we'll talk about our companies. We'll talk about a little bit about the key project components, our technology solution, and then we'll go into pricing for year one. So like I said, I'm John McKay, CEO of Nan McKay & Associates. I've been providing government services to entities very similar to yours for the past 25 years, which it pains me to say that, over 25 years, right? I provide executive oversight for over 110,000 vouchers, so housing choice vouchers. We work at housing authorities across the nation, and more than $1 billion of housing program subsidies annually. I oversee all of our ERAP. Are you familiar with the ERAP? Our ERAP program. I see that grin. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I oversee all of those projects as well. And we've distributed over $3 billion of ERAP funds over the past about 16 months or so. I also have over 15 years of strategic consulting on disaster programs, and now, of course, more recently, the COVID projects. On that, I'm going to hand it over to Stephen Rosario, and he will introduce himself.
Thank you, John, and good morning, Commissioners. Stephen Rosario, Senior Director for Nan McKay & Associates. I have over 15 years of administering federal programs, and I currently administer some of the largest, most complex, but yet most successful ERAP programs in the country that are currently leading the Treasury scorecards every single month. I look forward to the opportunity of working with you all, and with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Ures. I'm Vice President of Consulting for Nan McKay & Associates. There we go. I come with over 2 decades of experience in local, state, and federal government. I've overseen large infrastructure, housing, and economic development, as well as redevelopment projects. My specialty lies in disaster recovery and resilience. And as of late, I've been overseeing CRF, so COVID relief funding projects, emergency rental assistance projects, and most recently ARPA as it relates to ERAP. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having us here. My name is Andre Monette. I'm a partner with the law firm of Best and Krieger. I work out of the Washington, D.C. office of the firm. I work with cities across the country on advising them strategic advice on ARPA and how to deploy those funds. Before ARPA was passed into law, bulk my practice and still involved water utility work, infrastructure involving water. Which is actually what brought me to ARPA, is that I work with a number of cities and public utilities that were really in need of funds during the pandemic. And so we have a capability out of our DC office. We work in government relations, started working through Congress and with the White House to be intimately involved with the development of this program. And so once that passed, now we've been able to move into a phase where we're advising our clients on how to comply and what to do. I'll tell you a little bit about our firm. John's going to talk about the team as a whole, but our firm is a 125-year-old law firm. We have offices throughout the West. The bulk of our practice is working with local government agencies, cities, counties, other utility districts. And we have expertise in every facet of law that those, the government agencies face. And the bench on that goes very deep. I mentioned my practice in water. Lowry also has, my colleague here, a similar practice in water. We're before the Supreme Court. I've testified before Congress multiple times. We're interfacing with the White House consistently on these issues. And so same can be said for our broadband folks. We have folks that specialize exclusively in broadband issues, and they're at the same level. Our bench runs deep. And so, I hate to brag, but I'm taking the opportunity to do it. So Lowry's here with me, and so I'll turn it over to him as well. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. I'm Lowry Crook, also a partner at Best and Krieger. Before joining Best and Krieger, I served in some senior positions in the federal government that were focused on infrastructure funding, infrastructure projects, disaster recovery projects. Since joining Best and Krieger, my focus has been on helping local governments, local sponsors of infrastructure projects work with the federal government, meet the federal requirements for funding or permitting or whatever is required, and match those up with state and local requirements. Since coronavirus hit, it's turned, as Andre mentioned, to coronavirus relief funding, and each iteration of that, whether it's coronavirus relief funds or now ARPA funding, where we've been working with the National League of Cities. They're a client of ours to advocate city and local government views for the Treasury Department and the interim final rules that they issued. We comment on those with issues that are unique to cities and local governments that we want to see addressed in the final rules if and when they come out. So thank you. With that, I'll turn it to Ron.
Good morning. My name is Ron Erlob. I am the managing partner of Erlob and Company, a public accounting firm located just down the highway in Ada, Oklahoma, so where I have lived for 45 years. Our firm consisting of 18 staff members. We specialize in providing accounting and financial services to governmental and nonprofit entities, focusing on HUD funding and HUD grants. With that emphasis, we work with several types of agencies, housing finance agencies, housing authorities, municipalities, and of course some nonprofits. Our current client base is we have 70% of the clients in Oklahoma as housing authorities. Some of these are located in Norman, Shawnee, Guthrie, Dale City, just to name a few. We've been working with NAMK now for over 20 years. We provide financial and accounting services for some of their clients. We also teach some of their financial training sessions across the country, as well as to some of the state and legislative auditors, as well as HUD's Department of Enforcement Center. Thank you. And I'll turn it back to John.
So Ron deserved his own slide because he's so fantastic. So you heard from our partners. Oh, I knew I was going to do that. There we go. You heard from our partners a little bit about what they do. And I wanted to make sure you guys knew that it's not like we just threw this team together to come to present to you all today. We have been working together with BB&K for 20 years. We've been working with Ron and Erlab and Associates for 20 years. So we're all very used to working together. We're really good at working together. We understand, each one of each other's strengths and where we can cover for the other one. So this is not only an experienced team, but we can operate like a well-oiled machine. Tell you a little bit about Namakain Associates. We've been in business for over 40 years, so we incorporated in 1980. We are a woman-owned business, certified woman-owned business, as well as a Section 3 business concern, which is always helpful on projects like this. And we have over 1,500 full-time employees that work for us. We manage over 110,000 vouchers, like I said, distribute over $1 billion, and inspect over 300,000 units annually. We focus on affordable housing as well as disaster recovery, and more recently COVID. You'll hear us talk a lot about, ERAP, but we also have done a lot of strategic work that Catherine will go into for the state of South Carolina, as well as for South Dakota and Harris County. And kind of across the board, small business relief, healthcare reimbursement, education reimbursement, as well as, of course, the rental assistance and landlord programs. We've distributed over $10 billion of COVID funds for states, counties, and localities. And we've really been at the forefront of the COVID program in general. We originally were working in disaster recovery, so we understood a lot of the processes and procedures and policies, and we were able to easily then transition that over to the COVID projects. We also have administered state and local grants for over 25 years across the board on different type programs as well. And on that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine. She's going to talk a little bit about the organizational structure that we see that how we would work with all of you, and then we'll go into a little bit of our experience.
Thank you, John. So we just wanted to give you a brief high-level overview of our team and how we operate. Like we said, collectively, we have approximately 1,700 resources at your disposal. So depending on the programs, projects that you select, we truly want to be able to make sure that they're compliant, they're performed in an expedient manner, and you get the best support to make the decisions that the county needs and serve your citizens. I'll be the project lead. I'm supported by a core team that's worked on COVID-related funding and projects across the country. And then we leverage our deep bench. A little bit about our experience. I just wanted to kick this off. So we've dealt with various forms of COVID-related relief funds as they've been issued. CRF, CARES Act, ERAP, ARPA, currently. Each of these projects and programs was a little bit differently, but we have done full life cycle project and programmatic development. So we like to work with our clients to ensure that there's a strategic planning process. You choose the programs and projects that best service your community. You look at optimizing your current grant funding streams. So, I know that you've received multiple grant funding streams under COVID, and it's how can we look at best serving your community. In addition to that, we like to look at starting with program monitoring and compliance from day one forward, because we don't want any clawbacks. We don't want there to be any issues with the funding. So truly, as part of that strategic planning process, we set up that infrastructure going forward. With that, I'll turn it over to John.
So I'm going to start off with just some of our emergency rental assistance program, talk a little bit about our experience around that before we get into some of the other projects. So as you can see, all these different projects that we've worked on, and this is only a handful. We've done probably 5 or 6 more than this. But for all these projects, we did everything from program administration, strategic policy and guidance on the funding use, doing the technical assistance around how to set up the program properly, setting up the policies, the procedures, working with the legislative groups to make sure that the program is meeting the local needs. And then, of course, the full service operations, technology, call center, and then all of the local customer outreach as well. So we really do the full kind of turnkey solution when it comes to ERAP. So talk a little bit about some of the clients. So our second client for ERAP was actually the city and county of Tulsa. So we started off with their CRF programs. Didn't distribute a lot. I think the program was new. We're talking last July of 2020. We worked on their first round of funding, and I think we got about 5 or 6 million out the door for them. And then when they got their first real round of ERAP, we went ahead. We started with them on the city and county, and also the entire northern portion of the state of Oklahoma. So we're currently running the program. Even now, we're almost finished, but we're not quite finished yet. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we did both ERAP 1 and ERAP 2 for them, and distributed approximately $400 million within about a 9-month period, 10-month period. We also did a couple custom programs for them, some landlord eviction protection, home ownership programs. They really kind of have a wide breadth of programs that they run kind of under their ERAP program. They're kind of really at the forefront of ERAP and different programs like that. And then the state of New Jersey is a big one that we did. We started with them. They started in June of last year of 2020. They were only able to get about $3 million of their $90 million out the door over a 6-month program. They only had 2 months left. They called Stephen and I and they said, can you get the other, 87 million out the door within 2 months? We said, of course we can. So we were able to get through their CRF money of $90 million. We then moved on to their ERAP 1 money and distributed $390 million. Now, we were the first state in the entire nation to get all of the dollars out the door, and especially for a big program like this. We've now moved on to their ARPA funds, which is about another $270 million. And now they also just created a state program with federal funds of eviction protection program. So we're running for that for them as well. That's about $500 million or so. Miami-Dade County, this was our first ERAP customer. We run their housing choice voucher program and have for 7 years. So when they got the first round of CRF money, they asked us to come in and run that for them. So we distributed $10 million for them on the first round. We just finished up their ERAP 1 money of $71 million. We were one of the first counties in the entire nation to fully distribute all of the funding. And now we've moved on to their ERAP 2 funds, and we should be at 40% of all of their ERAP 2 ARPA funds by the end of the year. And finally, St. Louis County, Missouri, we've been running their ERAP 1 program. We distributed $27.6 million for them. We actually should finish that up, bless you, this week. We'll be complete on that one. And on that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hand it back to Catherine. She's going to talk a little bit more about some of the other programs that we've run around COVID.
Sure, thank you. John had mentioned that Nan McCain Associates has a long history with disaster recovery resilience projects, so disaster recovery and resilience projects for the last several decades. So I wanted to highlight just a couple of the project teams that we were a part of that represent, I think, the full life cycle of what we look at during disaster recovery or grants administration. First, I'll start with, so for each of these projects, we went through strategic planning, funding, optimization, project implementation, project development. So oftentimes we're not only kind of helping the client, working hand in hand with the client to create the programs and projects, but also Nan McCain has the ability to then implement the programs on the back end as well. One aspect or one point that I really want to stress with Harris County, Texas, we were able to go in and be funding advocates. So they're an entitlement county. We were able to help them advocate with HUD to receive a $1.25 billion carve out specific to the county. With Harris County, Texas, we manage their CDBG-DR programs focused on commercial residential buyout, single family infrastructure, homeowner assistance, training and technical assistance, Davis-Bacon, et cetera. Then we also help them with their CRF funding. This was specific, so not only have we created programs, strategies, and implement them, but we also work very closely on the subrecipient monitoring and compliance. Like I said, monitoring compliance day one is of the utmost importance. So we're running their monitoring compliance for small business, rental assistance, direct assistance, and then also the same function with ERAP, so monitoring compliance for ERAP 1 and 2. And since we run those programs actively, we know where the fraud, waste, and abuse comes from and where the pitfalls are, right, for our clients. The state of South Carolina were on the team, again, that ran the CDBG DR manual and policy review process. The CRF program, we helped to distribute $2 billion to healthcare facilities, nonprofits, and local governments that included cities and counties across the state of South Carolina. We're currently helping to administer the CDBG CV program, which is a supplemental program with CDBG funds. I'm sure you're aware of that too as an entitlement county. And ERAP, which is the full project operation implementation of their ERAP program and the distribution of 200 plus million in ERAP assistance. And on that program, as John had mentioned before, they're using our proprietary technology for distribution. Ron?
Thanks, Catherine. So you can see how they're keeping us busy as the accountant, right? So as you know, a public accounting firm here in Oklahoma, we have been approved as the from the Oklahoma Accountancy Board to provide governmental audits for the state agencies or state governments in Oklahoma. So we're coming in with providing single audit guidance. We submit audit reports to the state auditor's office for review. So we're working through that process. Looking here, you see a little bit of just a couple of examples here. I'm going to focus in on the city of Joplin here. We were contracted with them to perform their internal audit function related to the disaster recovery funds, totaling about $158 million. And of course, these audits have to be performed in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards. You probably know these as the Yellow Book rules, right? More from that standpoint. And while we're performing those audits, you know, we're focusing on certain compliance issues related to risk assessment, yes, but also looking at the life cycle of the grant. Many of these compliance issues, subrecipient monitoring, grant reporting, procurement, of course, cost eligibility as always. And then when you get towards the end of the grant, the closeout procedures of the individual projects here. Now, as well as that, we work on the internal control systems, focusing on the actual procedures that have been drafted and written, making sure that they are being followed, not only by the contractor, but in this case, the city as well, making sure those procedures are being followed. Our reports would then, of course, have to be presented to the city council as well as to HUD, you know, looking at those. So that's just a little bit about us. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Andre.
Great, thanks again. We really appreciate being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about what our role would be on this team if we're fortunate enough to get selected. You know, as lawyers, we've been looking at ARPA from every angle, as I mentioned, just from the start to finish. It really falls into two categories in our mind. There's project planning and there's project implementation, and then there's this overarching need for compliance the whole time. You know, initially, we're in pretty much a project planning phase with most of our agencies right now, most of our cities and counties. And we're helping them select which projects to pursue. And when I say that, I actually really want to make something very clear, is that in all of these cases, they are driving, and we are just an additional appendage. And I think it's important to remember from our perspective is that we know you guys have day jobs and you got plenty to do. And this money that's coming in is fantastic for many communities, and they get to use it in a wonderful way. But again, the people that are now tasked with managing it already have things to do. So we're here to be that extra appendage to do the things you need to help you decide which projects to do, just, you know, guide you and shape projects and scope, and then deploy the funds. I mean, NAMDK would be out here making sure that the money gets spent accordingly. We'll be looking at procurement issues and making sure that the contracts are led appropriately, and that other federal laws are complied with. Because the risk here is, well, there's twofold. When you're spending federal funds, if there's actual fraud, people go to jail, right? And fortunately, that doesn't happen very often. But another major risk is clawback from the federal government. If you don't spend that money and check all the boxes the right way, the federal government will come back and want their money back. And that's pretty much a huge hardship for communities. If they've already spent that money, where's it going to come from? So, our goal is to, and this team has never had a clawback, by the way, and our goal is to make sure that doesn't happen. Is to shape the projects up front with the, the guidance from you, and then implement them and make sure that all boxes are checked along the way. And so that, I mean, this rubric up there kind of talks through it. It's like, what are the boxes we can fit your projects into initially, and then let's get it underway. So I mentioned that we work with cities all over the country. We've been working with National League of Cities on questions that come to them. We've been advising them on how to respond. And these are some of the issues that have come up. But I mean, off the top of my head, we're facing a lot of questions about economic development. Can we use the money for direct grants to small businesses? Can we use the money to revitalize our downtown business district that got turned into a ghost town during the pandemic? Can we revitalize our zoo that needs to have disability access? Can we hire security? Can we give premium pay to folks? And pretty clearly there's a huge premium pay section in the act. Can we pay premium pay to the estates of dead people who worked for us and now have passed away? Can we pay premium pay to people who worked for us at a time and during the pandemic and now have moved on to other things? We're getting all kinds of questions about taxation. And the beauty of it is that we have people that I told you before, I focus on the water and the infrastructure side of things, but we have tax attorneys, we have labor and employment attorneys, and we get to turn to them and look for that guidance as well and help. So it's not just the team here, it's our entire firm that you're getting the backing of. So those are some of the issues that we have faced. I wanted to talk a little bit about ARPA and that overlay, and this is why we've been pretty busy with it. Is ARPA is a great act in the sense that it's very permissive. It's putting money out to local government, state government, tribes, and it encourages that money to be spent. And the guidance that Treasury has issued says as much. It says that we've listed out criteria that are non-exclusive, and so it leaves room to find other ways to spend the money. At the same time, it has a catch-all that says, oh, by the way, all other federal laws that apply. And so you've got this nice open room to go move in for your projects. There's still walls to that room, so you got to stay within it. But then there's this other overlay of, oh geez, what's Davis-Bacon, federal procurement rules, wage and hour issues, all the host of federal rules and regulations that apply to that. So that's what's keeping us busy. On top of that, because ARPA has so much room in it, we've actually spent a lot of time helping our cities and counties document how their project meets the requirements of the act. And when I say that, it's like when you're getting ready, you're pursuing a project, it doesn't fit squarely within the criteria that are listed in the Treasury regulations. Let's build a factual case as to why you still fit. And let's make findings on that. You can pass it with a resolution by your board. When you let the contract, you can make it part of the staff report, and you have just a beautiful documentation that everything's been above board. So we focus on those kinds of issues up front. And then as the contracts move forward, we focus on making sure that everything continues to be compliant. So this rubric, focuses on, okay, there's federal law, federal law that's kind of implemented by the state, which is the Clean Water, state revolving funds, and there's state law. And we look at all of those, and we bring people in as necessary to cover that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen, who's going to talk about technology.
Commissioners, an integral part of the success of any project really is the technology that supports those projects. Very similar to the setup you have here, allows you to run a very efficient committee meeting with the technology that you have in this very room. Is used as an example to show that technology can be used in a wide range of scenarios to support, whether it's to solve an issue or to build efficiencies. As these projects are identified with ARPA, our team will be working with you all to identify the right set of tools and the right technology to support those projects. We're going to be looking at the project management technology, making sure that the goals and the resources allocated to the project are properly being managed. We're also going to be looking at documentation, whether it's enhancing. We've worked with counties and states where they have very paper-intensive processes, and helping them build efficiencies by going through and designing the programs to be more paperless. We also want to take a look at the financials. Some of the technologies, some of the initiatives may require use of independent financial tools, and making sure that we have the sufficient financial controls built in. And if there's any integrations that are needed to be supported, with the project, that we take that into consideration and that those tools properly integrate. Now, some of these projects potentially it would entail with subrecipients. Sometimes it's directly with the community, right? And for example, using ERAP as an example, the families would come in, submit an application. So the technology to support the receipt of that application and also in accessible formats. We also want to make sure that the information that is being received on that project can be properly verified, right? So we're going to be looking at the technology that'll do the proper verification of the information, whether it's income, identity, IRS verifications, so that we make sure that we have sufficient controls to detect and prevent fraud and misuse within the programs. And we wrap all that around with making sure that there's sufficient security. We work a lot with Citrix, Podio, and Microsoft to make sure that the projects and the technology that is used is secure and the data that's being collected is properly maintained by the locality. With that, I'll turn it over to Lowry.
So just wanted to talk about the types of efforts that we would see in the first year of an engagement. And we sort of described the pieces of this, but just wanted to sort of put it together. First is we would partner with you on planning, and that starts with identifying what needs are there, working through what public engagement and input into the process of identifying needs and prioritizing those needs. Then which of those fit with ARPA and its types of eligibility, and then also against the bigger picture of there's an infrastructure bill that just passed. It's got a lot of funding. Some of those funds may pair with ARPA. A project may fit better into whether it's the water or the broadband or the transportation pieces of that, and how those overlay existing funds, CDBG and other funding streams. And so when Catherine refers to funding optimization, that's what we want to work with you to make sure that we're getting the most efficient use of funds to have as much projects that the community wants supported in the right way at least expense to the county. Then we look at capacity, both staffing, technology, what additional investments need to be made or augmented so that to support launching the program and starting to execute. So after the planning piece, there's project and program governance. That starts with who's the key management staff for the program. Are they empowered to make decisions? What are our performance goals? What's the schedule and the plan for getting it done? And we understand in that there's a tension between ARPA sets goals for and you're under public pressure to get funding in place, get projects started as soon as possible. But you also want to invest in lasting, meaningful programs that benefit the community. So then after that, there's the program policies and procedures. This is really putting the infrastructure in place to have the controls, the reporting, the regulatory requirements, and make sure that when an auditor comes along in a couple of years, that you can defend your decisions and have it documented. And then finally, there's starting project execution. This is procurement, making sure meeting federal procurement requirements, which ones apply, which ones don't, how those overlay with state and local, your authorities, contracting documents that meet both the federal and your local requirements, and just general project delivery as well. So now I'd like to open up to questions before we close things.
So general question, somewhat related, but with your work with the National League of Cities and submitting questions to Treasury, et cetera, what's your sense of the timeline on when we're going to get the final rules? And do you envision that we're going to see drastic changes from what's been?
The timeline's always a good question with these federal agencies when they're responding to comments. They did receive a fair amount of comments. The deadline was in July. I've heard that they're hoping to get it finalized by the end of the year. They understand that, folks need clarity, but whether that slips into early next year, it could. I do not see drastic changes at all. I think it'll be more fine tuning if there's any changes at all. I think there will be some because I think there are some areas that need clarification. They also are clarifying things in a running QA document that I think that sort of shows what tweaks might be made in the final rule.
Okay, thank you very much.
With all the new rules and everything, you don't envision the second payment being anything different than the 1 year from day of receipt, I believe is the way it was worded, of our original payment. You don't see that changing or anything, do you? What was that, Jeff?
Go to the mic so we can get on the record. No,
Yeah.
we don't see that changing at all, and we, like Lowry said, we're expecting clarifications along the lines of the FAQ document that Treasury has on their website now. I'll note that hasn't been updated since July. So we're hoping, that we'll get it within the calendar year. They promised September, and that was, that's come and gone. But, yeah, so.
As far as changes coming down the pike, one thing that I would want to flag is just that the Senate has passed a bill that may allow up to 30% of ARPA funds to be used on transportation projects. It has bipartisan support in the House. And I know a lot of communities we're talking to are looking at when and whether that passes and what contingency you may have to take advantage of that, and maybe even pair ARPA funds to have part of your local cost share for transportation projects. And so that's a big change, potential change coming down the pike that we'd just have to sort of incorporate into the plan.
Yeah, that's the one that passed Senate unanimous consent with no issues. So.
Questions? Let me just go back over my notes real quick. Sure.
So you're the project manager, so you're the boots on the ground. You'll be the one that we'll be interacting with on the phone and in person
Yes,
and
absolutely.
the whole 9 yards.
We have a local presence in Ron Erlop's office as well. We have 20 plus of the employees that are local to Oklahoma. And like I said, I will be your primary point of contact, but we really do work as a team and have worked for decades.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that we'll all be part of that strategic planning process and make sure that you can leverage everyone's expertise.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, we thank you for your time and take a few minutes now to close.
So again, in closing, I think hopefully we showed you that we are absolutely the right team to implement Oklahoma County's ARPA project. And really that's because of three things. The team, which you've now met, the experience that we walked through, and then our understanding of Oklahoma. And so as you can see, we have a specialized team focusing on each portion of the project, but we've got 20 years of working together and understanding how each other fit into a project. And we have a combined 200 years of experience. You met Ron Erlob. Ron's got 3 decades of experience in financial programs. You met BB&K. They have 130 years of expertise in federal policy, regulation, and laws. And then, of course, you met us, Nan McCain Associates, where we have 40 years of hands-on implementation and program management of federal programs just like this and kind of across the board. We also have cutting-edge expertise with ARPA programs and regulations, which hopefully you heard about today. We understand Treasury guidance. We know how to read it. We know how to implement these. We know how to report back to Treasury. So, you're not, I mean, that's a big thing, right? You smiled about ERAP. We all had to turn in those quarterly reports last month. And I mean, the things change on a regular basis on that reporting. So we're very experienced at how to do that. We have 20 years of implementing disaster funding and experience with CRF, ERAP 1, ERAP 2, ARPA. Although the three of us have a national presence, we all work together nationally. I think where we really stand out is we're all still kind of these small firms or operate like small firms. And so where we're best is at the locality. So, that expertise gives us a thorough understanding of those local needs and your local needs here. We've already distributed over $15 billion of COVID-related funds. So we know how to get the money out. We know how to create programs with you. We know how to talk them through. We know how to set them up properly with you. We know how to get the money out the door, because ultimately that's what we all need to do. That's going to be how we're judged, is did we actually get the money out the door on the right programs? Did we get the dollars out the door correctly? Or did a contractor come in here and hang it up and not get the money out the door? Our experience shows we can get money out the door, and we've been the fastest in the United States at getting money out the door. And then, of course, our exceptional track record, like everybody talked about, we've had on all of the projects that we've worked on over the past 20 years. We've never had a clawback. We've never had a major audit finding on any of our projects, which I don't think there's many companies that can say that they haven't worked on a project or ran a project where there weren't any clawbacks or weren't any major audit findings. And then our understanding of Oklahoma's needs and a commitment to Oklahoma's success. I didn't talk about this in the beginning, but we've been working here for 40 years. I work across this state. I know Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency extremely well. I know the executive director over at Oklahoma City Housing Authority, and the housing authorities across the nation, as well as running these emergency rental assistance programs in the northern part of the state. And again, we'd be extremely excited if you picked us to work on this project with you. Hopefully we were able to get across some of the things we think we can bring to the table and help you all with. And we just wanted to thank you for the time and the opportunity to be here with you all today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Motion to receive the presentation and the packet provided.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Next presentation at 1:30. I believe that might allow some of us to go eat lunch if we entertain a recess.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We will stand in recess until 1:25 this afternoon.